Hi friends, today we are going to learn services how can be enabled for Android applications, right? So in the webinar I am component how can be enabled while developing your app, right? So now I will be just taking you through the life cycle uh, which follows the methods implemented services in your applications. Basically, actually services. So till now I have on developing activity for any applications. So activity, as you know, is a screen of your applications, right? So suppose you have 5 screens of your applications, so that means you are going to develop 5 different activity each and every for each and every screen, and for those activity will be interacting with the user. But you have a requirement that something needed to be runs in background, all right? So the user will not be aware about that background thing that is not going to provide a user interface to interact with. So you have a requirement that suppose a user click on some download button. Suppose you want to download something, a file from the internet. So if a user click on button, so button will start a service, download service for that particular file from the internet. It will run in background, and if a user exits, if a user exit from that applications, but still that the downloading of that file is still running in background, it doesn't have to interact with your applications. So this is one type of example that you can implement while enabling services in your applications. So here services can be started by other component, as well as can also be bound to those component can also be bound to your services. So in other words, I can tell that if your applications have, as you know, that we will be having a 4 different type of component, right? One the name of those component can be given as activity, broadcast receiver, content provider, and the services. So suppose in your if you're on your application screen, suppose you want to start a service, so that application component is activity. So activity is going to start the service, or there will be 2 manner in which your services can be started. One is an independent manner, another thing is bound manner. So in independent manner, suppose a component starts the service, service does not need to worry about that is component is in active state or that application is in active state or not. So if a component has started the service will follow its own life cycle. It does not need to worry about that user has exited from that application, or user has exited from their component usage or not. So once a service started, so it will go through the task which it has been enabled for accomplished, all right? And another thing is the component can start the service in bound manner, in which suppose a component has started is bound to any particular service. So if component goes down, that service will also goes down, all right? So a service can be dependent on a component. It can also be enabled without any boundedness, all right? So and yeah, one more thing I want to tell about service, that service runs in the main thread of its hosting process, all right? So suppose, as you know, that when applications is going to start in any Android system, it will be executed, it will be having a particular process. So if the service does not create its own thread, or it does not run in the separate process, it will be running in the same hosting process by which it has been started. Alright, so these are the 5 key points that you must remember regarding introduction to the services. So this can be the example of the services. So suppose you have two long running operations that you want to start that runs in background. Alright, so suppose a user has started to download any particular file, or that is of 500 MB, and it wants to execute these services. If that service does not need to worry about that application is exited, or that component who has started this service has exited or not. So after keeping downloading of that file, it just a minute, I am having a call here. Hello. Sir, so here what happens when the services has been activated by any particular activity, it will runs in background, and it will runs in independent manner, or it can also be, as I told you, it can be also run in bound manner. So this can be one example of services while developing a chat application. So in this case, the services is here we have started this service for listening and checking for the message, alright, from the getting from the server. So it can also check for the check and download for the incoming message. Alright, so here suppose you have a chat activity, and it is going to start a services that will be listening for getting an incoming message from the chat server. Alright, so if as well as when this chat message has been received, it will deliver this message to the chat activity. So this is how the services can be executed. So suppose you are on Google Talk or Google Chat, or so what happens once you started chatting to your friend, and you have sent one message to him or her, and when you exit from your Google Talk or Google Chat, still if the other person, other end, that friend is sending you some message, it will be notified to you, alright, because that service is still running in background of your application. Even though you have exited from your application, that service will also take care regarding the incoming message from your friend. Alright, so this is how this can be executed for the services. As I told you, that service will be having a two type of life cycle. So one life cycle will be followed for the services who is independent from the applications or the component we had started, and the second type of life cycle will be followed by the suppose the component is bound to that particular services. So if the services who was independent in manner, so they will be following the first type of life cycle. That is that if the service is not still created, it will be implemented on create method. Then after it will call on start command method. Then after it will the callback method, just like activity life cycle. Alright. So here, the service after calling the on start command method, with the service will be running. So whatever you want to perform in that service, you can specify your practical stuff in. You can specify the source code into the on start command method. Alright, and at the end, when the service is stopped, or if it is been stopped by itself or the client, then it will call the on destroy. At the end it will call on destroy method, and at the end service will down. And the second type of lifecycle method is for the bounded services. So if the service is if the service is bounded to any particular component, so if that component is going to call on bind method, if that component is going to call bind service method, so that bind service method in in sequence it will call the callback method of on bind method of these services. Alright, and again it will the clients are still bound to your service. It will follow the whatever you have mentioned in that particular service. It will go on unbind method, and again it will go and for the on destroy method. See, if your client, if all of your clients has exited from the execution, so this service will not be running longer. Alright, so it will automatically call on destroy methods. So here these are the different callback methods of services. So if a component want to start any new service, it should start by start service method. Alright, and if you want to stop the service, so it should call stop service method. And services, suppose you want to bind your own, if you want to going to develop your own service, whatever service you are going to write, that will be that must be a subclass of the service class. Alright, just like if you are going to design your own activity, that must be the subclass of activity class. Here whatever you are going to design for the particular service, that must be the subclass of service class. Alright, and this service class, the subclass of the service class must follow the some callback methods. That callback methods, these are whatever I just told you. So in brief I will tell you which are different callback methods do for that particular service. So here first we will understand the on start command method. So this method will be called inside that service subclass when another component from outside such as activity requests that service by calling the start service method. Alright, and you may wonder that how to enable the service. As you know, we will be using intent, so we will be passing second parameter here as a service class. Alright, so you already know that if you want to throw the intent for any particular activity, we will be passing second parameter as a activity.class. Here you will be passing service.class, and you are calling start service method for that particular intent. So here this method will be called first after some component has requested one particular service by start service method. And once this method executes, the service is started and can run in background indefinitely. Alright, so until that component is not calling stop share, until a service itself not calling stop self method, or that component is not calling stop service method, this method will still will keep running on for the in the background. Alright, the second type of is on bind. So this method will be called when other component wants to bind with the service by calling bind service. As I just told you, this will follow the second type of life cycle of the service. And by returning the iBinder object, the system provides an interface to that client to use to communicate with the service. Alright, so this onBind method will return iBinder object that is used to communicate with that component. So this will be one type of client server mechanism, and here the service will be the service will follow the server, just like client server mechanism. And if you don't it will this method will return null for not allowing binding. Alright, so this method is just one type of method that will follow inside the services which are the bounded services. Alright, now as we know this on create method, so this the system calls this method when the service is first created. So if some component has started the service and this service is not running, so it will if it is not in the memory or it is not running, so it will first call this method. Alright, so after that it will create the after that it will call the on start method or on bind method based on the service type, that is a bounded type or unbounded type. And if the service is already running, this method is not called. Alright, because if the service is already running, that it has already gone through the implementation of this on create method. At the end it will at the end it on destroy method, the last callback method of activity lifecycle. So the system calls this method when the service is not longer used or is being destroyed. Alright, And the implementation this to clean up the implementing this method, that means it will be going to clean up all the resources such as threads, registered listeners and receivers, etc. from your context. And this is the last call the service receives. So at the end, when if the service is an unbounded service, and that means it is going to be it is going to be stopped by calling stop service method for that particular component, or the service itself can call stop shelf, all right. So stop shelf. Otherwise, if in bounded service type, what happens when component is bounded to any particular service? So if that component is disabled, or if component is exit, then means this service is going to be destroyed. So at that time it will automatically call on destroy method. So this is the callback methods of life cycle of services. So you will be get more your doubts clear when you are going to do some practical stuff on our platform. All right. So till now, just consider these are the callback methods of MS services. Thank you very much for listening.